Alright, welcome everyone. I am on location today at a place that's probably one of the most sentimental places I'm going to visit for this video series. It's Creekside Reserve, and it's just like a stone's throw away from my house. It has quite a wide variety of different kinds of habitats, all kind of within the wetland ecosystem. And specifically, geographically, this is part of the Beaver Creek wetland corridor. It's actually the southernmost part, and probably one of the main attractions, I would say, is just the winding creek and streams that they're not too massive or anything that's like, you know, earth mind-blowing at least, but if you like a nice quiet stream that just flows all year long, this would be the place. And this is actually the home of the Little Beaver Creek. Like I said, it is part of the Beaver Creek wetland corridor. And the cool thing about that is that the Little Beaver Creek kind of diverges off the regular Beaver Creek. And the Little Beaver Creek is a tributary to the Little Miami River watershed. So this is a pretty nice spot if you want to go wading, or that's at least what I'm doing today. I got wading boots on, which have been really helpful. And right now you can kind of hear the highway traffic that runs parallel to this entire reserve behind me. And that makes it a little bit more annoying, just all the noise and everything, but we'll manage, of course. So yeah, it's got 137 acres. It's primarily riparian woodland habitat, and riparian basically means wet woods. So it has a lot of transitory wildlife, just like red fox, coyote, different kind of woodchuck. White-tailed deer is always present here. Pretty much every time I've gone here, I've seen white-tailed deer. So there's always plenty of those. So more likely, no doubt we'll see some, at least in our visit here today, for the rest of the day this evening. So the trails are very fascinating. It's got basically a wide corridor of prairie. The trail is actually total in length about 3.5 miles, and then there's about 1.5 miles of bikeway, because most of this reserve is honestly relatively flat, which I just find really helpful. Especially if you're not someone that's really too big into hiking. But yeah, today's going to be quite interesting, I guess. This place has always been the subject of like the annual bird count, and while it's not really the time of year right now for that specifically, we'll be definitely checking out different kinds of bird life, because there's always something unique going on here. And like I said, all the different mammals like white-tailed deer are always common here. And not only that, but we might go wading right through the Little Beaver Creek here. Maybe stay in the middle like I am right here and try some long exposure. So hopefully we get a variety of subjects, and hopefully as the day goes on and comes the evening and the sun sets, we'll have a gorgeous golden hour and maybe get a nice sunset shot. But yep, anything else is up for grabs, so let's just get started. So far I've just been wading across the Little Beaver Creek here, just kind of zigzagging. Sometimes I go up on dry land, on like the footpaths, and then I'd find another just little trail that'd kind of break away, and it would lead you right back into the Little Beaver Creek here. And I don't know. I mean, so far it's just been thinking about different landscapes and water long exposure. I even slapped on a neutral density 4 filter, or ND4 filter, which means it darkens the exposure in your camera that it reads, and you have to stop it up for 4 stops of light. I've been using that in a polarizer, just trying to experiment with different wide angles on the fastest parts of the stream, so that with this long exposure I can accentuate the motion more. And especially with that neutral density filter, is that it creates more of a silky kind of glass-like effect to the water, which is I find to be really nice. And those images, since it's kind of midday light, I've had to dodge the sunlight, the direct light, with when it comes behind the clouds. But sometimes you just get a little impatient, so you just kind of shoot it anyways, or you bracket it and hope for the best. And even those images will look best in black and white, which I think will help. But I've also been bracketing in an aperture priority, which just helps, because then all you have to do is mess with the aperture and the ISO level, and the camera dictates for you automatically what shutter you want to be at. So if you set the other 2 settings kind of right in the whole exposure triangle, it should set a slow shutter speed for you. Every time I come back here to Creekside, though, it's just always been such a just pleasurable experience. There's so many different different memories I have of this place, both photography and otherwise, and it's a place of firsts as well. It's the first time I dropped my shutter release in the water. I was trying to do a long exposure like this several years ago, and also this is honestly kind of like one of the places that got me into birds and birding, when I was walking along the dry foot trails over here, and I just saw this big wingspan of a great blue heron. I guess I startled it or something, and it just flew right down this Little Beaver Creek here. And that's one of the few moments that just kind of really, I guess, inspired me a little bit, and just got me really excited into birds and birding in general. And not only that, but as far as wetland habitats go, it's just a very solid just ecosystem, and it's a great reserve that I just love going to time after time. But yeah, I'm going to keep along here. I'm going to keep wading along the water, and probably do a few more long exposures, see how those go, and try not to get my actual feet and socks wet, because walking around like that for the rest of the day is not what I want to do. And trust me, I've done it before. It's not fun. But yeah, we're just going to keep on going here and see. Trying something different here at this specific visit here at the Creekside Reserve for me. I've pretty much been spending the whole evening wading just right along the Little Beaver Creek, around it, in it, all that kind of stuff. I really haven't been on the actual trail, and it's been honestly spectacular just because of how like almost intimate it feels just to be, you know, like one with the water, and just wading right through. But I expect this to happen, but of course my wading boots got waterlogged, and that just meant, you know, my socks got completely soaked, so I had to like wring them out like a towel and then just kind of throw them aside or put them in my bag. That's what I did. Kept them separate, of course, from everything else that's in there, gear wise. and this is a section I haven't seen before. This is the southwesternmost side of it, I believe, and it has like a little bit of a cattail marsh over here, so I'm hearing like common yellowthroats, different kind of like song sparrows, and other wetland common birds. So just being, waiting along the Little Beaver Creek here, I've just been seeing some spectacular views, different kind of stream fishes that are pretty common, and those are nice because they indicate healthy water quality in the entire ecosystem. And I've also seen quite a few mallards that are just swimming along. So far, no sandpipers or plovers of any kind, which is alright, I guess. But I've been sticking just to this wide-angle lens right here and shooting different long exposures as I just make my way upstream of just the water, and it's been honestly amazing. Now, one spot in particular early on during the Creekside Trail over here is a nice little just straight across horizontal, not so much a waterfall, but it does kind of dip below, and but it has a very smooth, beautiful quality to it. That's the main reason. It's one of the main reasons I came here again. And luckily the lighting was just right, where it was nice and diffused at the time of shutter capture, and I could work many different angles, just try different techniques. Try the polarizer filter only, and then put the ND4 filter on, which is a neutral density 4 filter, 4 stops, which means it makes the lens 4 stops darker, so you have to compensate that with your shutter, your different other exposure settings. So in this case, I made the shutter a lot much slower, but that in turn, in terms of composition and creativity and with the actual image itself, means that the water looks more glass-like. It has much more of a sheen to it, which is kind of what I was going after anyways, so it kind of worked out at least. But I've also been seeing a lot of different animal tracks just along the sanded parts of the Little Beaver Creek here. Different kinds of, it looks like deer and fox, maybe even raccoon, which has honestly been a beautiful day, and I don't know, I can't complain really. Just been taking a lot of photos, not so many as I want to, just because I have been having to traverse the entire stream and negotiate all the obstacles, and almost tripping and falling more than a dozen times at least. But just seeing all these different kinds of views that I'd never even seen or I thought were possible is just it's just opened up a whole avenue of photographic moments and possibilities that I'm really grateful for, honestly. So in terms of more specifics with the water long exposure I've been experimenting with, I just, like I said, worked different angles. I made sure, in this case, since I had wading boots on, it helped prepare me for quite literally standing in the middle of the water. And that perspective is honestly the most desirable, I would say, for any kind of waterfalls, if you can within safe reason, or if the park or preserve rules allow it. So in this case, I just stood right out in the middle, and that helped get the nicest perspective, I believe, because about 3 years ago I took another image of the same exact spot from the trail side, which was up on dry land, and I mean the results looked pretty nice, but the view wasn't quite so gripping, or just it wasn't so much impactful. So aperture priority mode, as the name suggests, means that the highest priority is on the aperture, and that's a little redundant, but the camera takes away the shutter from your control, unlike in manual mode where you can control everything. So you can still control the aperture for your f-stop and the ISO, and as long as you control those two settings in tandem, it's going to automatically choose, the camera will think for you, the right kind of shutter speed to make a proper exposure. That's not always going to be the case though, but it does work for a lot of situations, and in this case I bracketed typically about 2 or 3 times for most of my exposures that I made, and those exposures allowed me to capture the sunlit, the background where all the different foliage is, which kind of helped. So I exposed for that, and I exposed for the foreground details where the dark murky water was, and because capturing all that image, that shadow and light detail in one frame, it would have been a little more tricky, and in this case I could get pretty much an evenly lit exposure from front to back, which I think really helps. Another important part of Creekside Reserve here is just all the different old growth trees. There's honestly some forest giants that have been here quite a long time, just with all this glacial meltwater deposit that carved the Little Beaver Creek over here. And most of these trees are ones that are more water tolerant and don't mind being near creeks or streams such as this. And then of course over here on my side is a perfect example of a wet meadow, which brings in a whole host of really unique and diverse native flora and fauna, namely just different kinds of birds and different kinds of plants, or even flowers in that case. Alright guys, thank you so much. That has been Creekside Reserve. Really didn't explore all of it because there's just so much to really tackle in a single day. So much diversity of plants and species, and just there's a lot of things to photograph, but you can only have so much time in a day. But I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, make sure to get out there guys. Thank you. Have a good day.